Morning everybody, it's Andrea here from the Advisor Support Team at Head Office. Thanks for joining the webinar session today. We've got a few people left to join, so I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes just before we begin, just to let everybody log in and get set up and ready. Before I do go any further, can I just ask that everybody who has joined us already, can I just ask that you raise your hand just by selecting the orange hand icon, just to confirm that you can hear me okay, just so I know that the audio is working. So if you can hear me, if you could just raise your hand, that would be fantastic.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning everybody, and thanks for joining the session today. Apologies for the delayed start. We've had a couple of issues with the sound this morning, but hopefully everything's set up and running. So it's Andrea White here from the Advisor Support Team at Head Office. I'll be hosting the webinar session today alongside my colleague Samantha Gibson, who'll be taking you through the demonstrations today. Before I do go any further, can I just make sure that everybody can hear me okay? If you could just raise your hand by selecting the orange hand icon, just to confirm that you can hear me okay, that would be fantastic. Great, thank you very much everybody. So it looks like we're all up and running now. Okay, so today's session slightly different to the scheduled session. We'll actually be going through a review. We'll be going through the bed and ISA process, and we'll be going through the top-up process. So originally we'd scheduled to go through the fund switch, but we've now rescheduled that to Monday's session. Obviously we wanted to make sure you got the full bed and ISA top-up demonstration as soon as possible, because we'll appreciate that you've got a lot of clients who you're advising on the ISA process for at the moment. Okay, so today we'll be doing the bed and ISA process and the ISA top-up process, and the fund switching and the review has been moved to Monday the 17th of March, that's this Monday. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's Andrea White here from the Advisor Support Team, and I'm joined by my colleague Samantha Gibson, who will be running through the demonstrations for you all today. So before I start, I'm just going to show you quite quickly the new page that we've set up on the Advisor Support Team tab on the Positive Solutions Extranet page. I'm just going to open my screen up for you all to view. And again, could I just ask that you could raise your hand just to confirm that you can hear me okay and see the screen in front of me? Fantastic, that's great. Thanks everybody. So this brand new page that we've launched on the Positive Solutions Extranet is the Advisor Support Team tab. We've also got the Workbench Sales Support icon halfway down the page here. And from here we've got a variety of different tools available for you to access once you've completed your Easy to Do Business training course. We've got a variety of different video tutorials which cover everything from Workbench, Office Web, remuneration process, and Defacto as well. They are excellent video guides, so I would recommend that you do view those if you haven't done so already, if you do need any additional support in any of those areas. In addition, we've got a copy of the Delegates Handbooks. These are the handbooks that were provided to you on your training courses. They're those Easy to Do Business packs. We've got the financial planning copy, the mortgage and protection copy, and the protection IPA copy as well. So if you just open up one of these documents, I'd just like to draw your attention to quite a useful page, or two pages actually, on these documents. We've actually got the sales process quick guides. Now this outlines each different product area, the fact find that you need to complete, whether there's a workbench sales process to complete, the ATR profiler if required, also the research to complete, the suitability report, any additional documentation, and whether that product requires pre-approval. Okay, so that's pages 3 and 4 of the Delegates Handbooks. It does outline every area and the process to complete following the intrinsic guidelines. Okay. So just back to the page, towards the bottom we've just got a quick reminder of the important email addresses and telephone numbers should you need any additional support. So we've got our technology support telephone line. They'll be the guys that install the software for you before you join your training course, and they'll also be there to support you if you do have any issues, any technical issues relating to the software. So they can be contacted as usual at support@thinkpositive.co.uk or the telephone number, which is 0871 700 1111, and it's option 1 and then option 1 again. And in addition, Defacto have got their own hotline as well. They can be contacted on 01844 295 544. Defacto are also running their own webinar sessions, which I believe are held Wednesday and Thursday mornings at the moment. If you would like to register for those, I'll show you how to do so in a couple of moments. They're extremely useful, and I would recommend that you do join if you haven't done so already. And finally, just another reminder of the advisor support team telephone number. We've got 90 members here in head office at the moment, and we can help you with any advice or sales process queries that you have got. We are also running the webinar sessions on a daily basis. At the moment we're running a different topic every single day for the next fortnight. And if you would like to log into any of the future or upcoming webinar sessions, please just take a look at the announcements page on the Positive Solutions Action at homepage, and that has a copy of all the topics and the links to join each one. Okay, as usual, whilst the webinars aren't running, you can contact the team on the normal telephone number, which is 0191 241 0739, or the email address, which is advisorsupport@intrinsicfs.com. So I'm just going to bring you back up the page here and just show you how you can register for those Defacto webinars. If you can see the advisor support graphic here, again, this is quite a good tool if you're not sure who to turn to or who to contact for some support. We've got the different support areas, and obviously the contact details for those support areas. And as you can see in the top right hand corner, there's a little link there for the Defacto webinars, and if we click on here, it just takes us directly through to the Defacto website there, and that just allows you to register for the session that you want to join, and they'll then send you the link and the details to join. Okay, so back to the Workbench Sales Support page. I'm just going to take you back to the Advisor Support Team tab. I've had a few pieces of feedback and comments from advisors saying that they would quite like to access the webinars in their, in their own time, at their own leisure. So what we've actually done now is we've loaded the webinars onto the Positive Solutions ActionNet. And you can actually find this underneath the Workbench Sales Support icon there in its own section named Webinars. If you click on here, you can see a copy of the webinars that we've already run and recorded for you all, and today's session will be on there shortly for you as well. Okay, so you can just view any of those webinar sessions from here. Okay, so hopefully you've all found that useful. I'm just going to take you through to the Intrinsic ActionNet. Some of you will have seen this already, some of you might not yet have used this. You can actually access the ActionNet through the gateway. You click on Resource Centre along the left hand side here, and this just pulls you directly through to the Intrinsic ActionNet. And the two topics that we'll be going over today are Bed & ISA and the ISA top-ups. So you can actually find this guidance by scrolling down the left-hand side to Document Store down here at the bottom. And if we move down, we've got the Bed & ISA documentation here for the investment replacements. We've got a step-by-step guide, a suitability report, and assumptions documentation as well. and Sam will come back, Samantha will come back and touch on these later on, and just sort of talk you through those documents, those guidelines, and what documents that you need to use. Okay, so I hope you all found that information useful there. What I'll do now is hand you over to my colleague Sam, who will be taking you through the BED and ISA and ISA top-up demonstrations for you all. We will be taking questions throughout, so she will pause at different stages to pick up any questions that you have got relating to the process. But any other questions, we'll make sure that we do answer at the end. So we're running today's session until 11:30 a.m. There'll be plenty of time for you to ask any questions. If you have got anything to ask, please just pop that into the question box. Either myself or Sam will pick that up for you. Okay, thanks everyone.
Hi everybody, it's just Samantha here from the Advisor Support Team. What I'd like to go through with you now is just a run through of the BED and ISA process that I'm sure you'll all find really useful. I know we've had quite a lot of queries from the Advisor Support Team about how to complete the BED and ISA process how to complete the BED and ISA process in full. Can you just confirm as well that you can all hear me, because I know we've had a few issues with sound this morning, so if I could just ask you all to raise your hand. That's excellent, brilliant. Okay, so as you can see on my screen here, I'm just going to take you through some slides for the BED and ISA process. So as Andrea has just showed you there, you can access all of these details on the document store at any time, and this webinar is being recorded, so it will be added to the webinar section of the Advisor Support Team tab in the PS extranet. Okay, so just to quickly go through an introduction about the BED and ISA process, if you've set up a platform account and the client holds both an ISA and a collective account, you can take an instruction from your client to act on their behalf to transfer the annual allowance into the ISA at the start of the new tax year. Some platforms do allow this to be an automated transaction, and some require you to manually make the move each year. So in either circumstance, you must have a client service agreement in place to be able to use the process described in this guide. Okay, so basically you would already have agreed this with your client that you're going to be doing the automatic ISA submission to the new tax year. So this type of business is considered a replacement, as units are being cashed in and new units purchased. However, it does not require pre-approval. This guide is designed to aid you to move your clients' money in an efficient way as possible, minimising the back office work that's required. And once you've documented to the client the intention to repeat the BED and ISA transaction each year, there will be no requirement to complete a full submission in future years. So this can be confirmed as part of the client review. So once you've done the initial process for all future years, you can basically just add a note to the client file. You won't need to repeat the process every year. So what's required in the workbench system? It is essential to record sufficient information about each of the existing plans from which the transfer is being made in Workbench. So to do this, you need to complete an investment, need fact find with the financial planning fact find case on Workbench. The following slides highlight some of the areas that must be completed, so I'm just going to take you through those now. So as you can see here, this just shows you the scope wheel slide. So you'll obviously all be aware of this page on the financial planning fact find. In this case, you would only need to select investments because we're just going to be looking at the ISA. So you would select investments and then cross all of the other areas out, and you would just need to make a note as to the reasons why you're not going to discuss those. Following on from this, you would then complete the property and other assets page just as normal, and you would just follow through the workbench system as you usually would, add in any notes at the time wherever is necessary. So again, you would add the savings and investment details just as you normally would in the fact find, and as you can see here, it's just explaining that you can just if you press the arrow here, this will just make the box bigger and you can obviously fill in more details. And you would complete all sections that are mandatory with as much information as possible. It won't let you move any further unless the mandatory sections are completed. The sections that are not mandatory are just for your own benefit to fill in, and it would be in best practice to fill in as much information as possible on the workbench just for future reviews as well. So it does state here that you do need to input the initial investment amount and the commencement date, although these have not been marked with an asterisk to say that they're mandatory, and it will actually let you proceed without filling those in. In this case, you will need to complete the commencement date for those. So again, you would just follow through the screens and just update notes as and when required. Now, in the page for the investment needs analysis, you would put the review amount as the ISA amount, so in this case it would be 11,520, which is the amount that's being reviewed. So obviously that could be up to 23,400 if it's going to be a back-to-back ISA. If it's going to be for joint clients, an analysis should be completed for each client separately. So as you can just see underneath here, it just says that the client wished to receive further advice about reinvesting money from their existing arrangements. That would be yes. And the box above would be, does the client require further advice on reviewing the underlying funds within their existing arrangements? That would be no. So you need to make sure that those two questions are answered correctly. So just moving forward then, it just takes you through again to the investment needs analysis. Are there any potential penalties for any of the investments being considered for reinvestments? So in this case, that would be yes, because you do have a potential capital gains tax liability if you're encashing, if there's any other investments to be encashed within that tax year. So you just need to pop any details of that within the box there. And then just below where it's under objective of investments, you just need to explain what it is that the objective and the reason for the reinvestment is, which in this case is going to be tax efficiency. This wording actually follows through into the suitability report as well, so it's best to start with as though you're talking to the client. So for example, you wanted to grow the money in a tax efficient environment. And then just moving forward, you would then be taken forward to the priorities section. As you remember on the scope wheel, we only click the investments as a priority, so that's only going to bring up the one area. If you'd clicked any further areas, so for example protection or mortgage or retirement planning, you would have a few different areas in this box, and then you would change those as to which is the most important priority for the client. In this case, and with it being a bed and ISA process, you would only put in the investments element anyway, so you're only going to have the one priority for the client. So as you can see in the box at the bottom, it has the disposable monthly income, the available monthly budget, which generally in this case would always be zero, and the available lump sum budget. So it will be exactly the same as the review amount that we put in on the previous page. So in this case it's 11,520. Okay, now in terms of the attitude to risk, If the attitude to risk has been discussed and confirmed within the last 12 months and the client agrees that the attitude to risk for this objective hasn't changed, then the previous profiler can be used. A copy of the profiler used at the original investment must be uploaded in Officeweb. Now, if there's been no discussion with the client about the ATR within 12 months, or the client wants to change their ATR, then the intrinsic ATR profiler must be used. So in this instance, the recommendation must be supported with the appropriate fund research and support and explanations fully documented in the suitability report. So as you are all probably aware, the ATR can be found on the Workbench system, so there would be a link to that. You may have a copy of the attitude to risk profiler on your desktop as well, so as long as you save that and don't forget to upload that to Officeweb, that would be sufficient. Okay, so just moving on now to fund assumptions. Like I say, if I'm going through this a little bit quick, we do have this recorded and we do also have it on the document store as well if you'd like to go through it in your own time. But just for the benefit of the webinar today, I'll just try and go through it as quickly as possible. And then, like I say, as soon as I finish the session on BED and ISA, we'll have a look at some questions as well. So for fund assumptions, if there has been no review of objectives or an ATR discussion at this meeting, then the new ISA can be invested in the same funds in the same proportion as those disinvested from the OIC. There must be a commitment to review them at the next servicing meeting. So wording in the suitability report will reflect this. For example, we discussed fund selection at our previous meeting, and you would put the date of the previous meeting, and you confirmed that you were happy to maintain your investment in the same proportion. We will review your attitude to risk and fund selection at our next servicing meeting, which will be in, and then you'd put obviously the day of that. If you wish to review this sooner, then please feel free to contact me. So that would be all you'd need to put in there for the suitability report. So if there's been a discussion about the ATR and the fund selection at this meeting, then the new ISA will be invested according to the new recommendation. For whole of market, full de facto research is required. You can confirm if the funds remaining in the OIC will change or stay the same, but remember to include any OIC fund switches in your tax calculations as well. So just coming on here to the recommendations screen, as you can see here, which you're probably all aware of, when you come to this screen, you will complete the mandatory areas, so the client's name, the lump sum investment. It is a top-up policy, and are you applying for this product? This will always be yes. Also under here it'll say replacements recommended. In this case, again, it would be yes, and you would just put a brief description of the fund name and the amount to be invested. So in this case it's Carillion balanced and it's 100%. So moving on from this page, you'll then come to the suitability report. And once you've completed the details of the recommended product, you can click on the suitability report to launch the report writer, or you can use the BED and ISA suitability report template, which I'm going to come on to in a second. So obviously you've got two choices with the suitability report. If your BED and ISA case satisfies a number of assumptions, you can use a simplified template report, which you can find on the Extranet document store, called BED and ISA suitability report template, and I'm going to show you where that is in a second. Or if the BED and ISA case includes a change of funds or investment strategy, a full Workbench report writer suitability report is required. So moving on then to which documents would be required to be uploaded to Officeweb. So the most recent platform valuation showing current holdings, and this is also evidence of where the money's coming from. You would need a previous ATR profiler or an intrinsic ATR profiler if their attitude to risk has changed or if a profiler hasn't been completed. You would include fund fact sheets for existing plan and for the new recommendation if that's changed. Any fund research for any new recommendations if it's a whole of market. All tax calculations regardless of whether a tax liability will arise on encashment or surrender, and the application form. You'll also include the relevant suitability report, whether that's the full report or the shortened report, And for best practice, we would advise you to upload a copy of the client's original fact find if you have that on the TP system. Obviously, if this is a new case, you will have completed the Workbench fact find, so that will already be stored on the Office web system. Okay, so just moving on now to where you can find the shortened suitability report, just to give you an idea of that. So as we've just shown you previously, just find it. You would just go to the document store in the Intrinsic Extranet, and you'll find this on the Gateway homepage if you just go to Resource Centre. And if you just scroll down to Advice Quality Guidance, and it's just under Investment Replacements. So the step-by-step guidance is what I've just gone through with you there, so you can have a copy of that. You can also have a look at the Bed and ISA Template Suitability Report, which I'll just give you, just show you a copy of this now. So this would be for the shortened process. So as you can see, you would just complete the client name and address, the date of the meeting with the client, or the current date of the letter to be issued to the client's full name, the date that you discussed this with the client, any previous interviews that you've had with the client in the past, all of the details about the new provider and the fund that you're going to be investing in, and just basically complete all of the areas that are in red. So as you can see, it's quite a shortened letter compared to the full suitability report. A lot of it you can actually delete as well, so it's just a generic report, so a lot of it might not apply. And then, like you say, you would just complete that and upload that to Office Web. So you would basically just save that when you've completed it, and then you would just go back into Office Web, into the client file. Just see if I have an Office Web open just to give you an example of that. So for example, if you go into search for the client, here we've just opened up a test for Miss Tanya Testington, and this will bring up your client's details, and then on here you would just go into the manual sales process, and you would just upload any documents linked to that client. Okay, so I think that's pretty much covered off the Bed and ISA process and the documents that are required and where you would upload those documents. Like I say, if you require any further guidance on them, all of the information about Bed and ISA has been stored on the Advice Quality Guidance under the Intrinsic Extranet, and there's loads of different guidance on here as well for various areas of the sales process. What I'm going to move on to now, we're going to cover off the top-up process, but first of all I'm just going to have a quick read through some of your questions and see if there's anything that I can answer before we move on to the top-up process. So I'll just, the line might go quiet for a few moments, so I'll just read some of the questions, and if there's anything that further that you'd like answering, please just pop your questions into the question box. Hi everyone, just Samantha again. We do have quite a few questions in with regards to the Better Nicer, but as the top-up process is quite a quick process, I'm just going to take you through that now and then we'll address all questions at the end of the top-up process. So what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to go back into the intrinsic extranet. And I'm just going to show you where you find the guidance on the top-up process. So if you're in the home page on the intrinsic extranet and you go to AQ Guidance and Processes, if you just follow that along and then go down to Financial Planning Core Advice, then there's a further tab which says Design a Solution, and if you follow that along within the Design a Solution tab, it will tell you about re-registration, and cash and investments, ISAs, just various different areas that you can look at. If you go to the very bottom of that tab, it'll actually say top-ups. So if we have a look at the top-up process now, so with a top-up, basically it's where an existing client wishes to make a further investment to a previously advised contract. The client's circumstances should be considered for top-up before any other new contract is considered, and that applies to lump sum and regular premiums. So if I just take you through the Design a Solution top-ups process here now, and then I'll just take you through Officeweb and show you what's required. This basically just gives you an indication as to why a top-up might be suitable for the client. So it could be as a result of an annual review, the client's spoken to and obviously has some additional money and they want to invest it, or if it's with regards to using allowances prior to the tax year. Okay, so the source of the further investment, you would need to document where the source of the money is coming from for the investment. So again, you would just do that in the letter that I'm going to show you in a second. So make sure that you make a note of any material changes. Also, if the fact find that you've done previously is now quite out of date and it's not suitable anymore, it would be best practice to complete a new fact find on the Workbench system. However, you can use the previous fact find if the clients confirm that their circumstances haven't changed. Now, with regards to the existing product, this should be reviewed against other possible solutions before making a recommendation. So, for example, has the client utilised their ISA allowance before topping up an OIC, for example? With the existing provider, cheaper, more beneficial solutions for the client's investment should be either recommended or discounted as part of the solution. So, for example, the existing policy may carry higher charges than consolidation of their investment on a platform. So where it's more beneficial to the client to replace their existing product or provider, you would need to look at the replacement guidance, which again is just in the solution section that I've showed you earlier. So it just gives you a bit of information there about fund selection with regards to the intrinsic fund matrix and about any existing plans that you already have. So where the client is invested in a product that is not currently on the intrinsic panel and does not have access to funds from the intrinsic fund matrix, then as long as they continue to align their selected risk profile and asset allocation, the new money can be invested in these funds without any form of matrix concession. So that only applies to obviously top-up cases. If you have a servicing agreement in place with your client and the client's material circumstances or objectives have not changed, you can top up your client's investment proportionately in line with their current funds and review the whole investment at the next review meeting to ensure that it's still meeting the client's objectives. So this may be appropriate to process to follow when the client is making top-ups to their policy prior to the tax year end, for example to utilise their full ISA allowance or to top up their pension contributions. Also, just bringing you onto the shortened process here. So with regards to top-ups, you don't need to follow the full sales submission process. With the shortened process, just to give you an idea as to what you need to follow, what steps you need to follow, with the shortened process, a Workbench fact find is not required, and you would require an illustration to be uploaded to Officeweb. The shortened suitability letter is appropriate like I say, unless there's been a significant change in the client's circumstances. And again, this would need to be uploaded to Officeweb, and it would have to confirm the following information. So that there's been no changes to the client's circumstances, where the source of the funds came from, reconfirmation of the client's attitude to risk, reconfirmation of the client's investment strategy, the provider, the product, the funds and the amount that you're going to invest, what the advisor charge is going to be, and that you've discounted any other alternatives. So in terms of the shortened process, this only applies where best advice is to top up the existing arrangement. Where the recommendation would be to utilise a new product, a full sales process must be followed as normal. So, like I say, the ISA top-up template is also available on the document store, which I'll show you that in a second. And again, just tells you a little bit more information here about if the client comes directly to you, how you proceed with that. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just go into Officeweb and just show you basically how to do the manual sales process for the ISA top-up. Now, just to take you back from the first page in the Intrinsic Office website. Now, this is an intrinsic training site, so if it is slightly different to what you log in, it's just because we might be on a slightly older version of the site. So you would go to search for the client details. So in this case, we'll just put in test and just search for a client. I would imagine we might have a lot. I'll try another one. We'll get there eventually. Right, what I'm going to do, I'll just put in a new client. Some people do tend to have the same surnames every now and again. Now you would click obviously a private client. The only time you click corporate client is if it was a company that you were dealing with, but generally if you're doing an ISA top-up, it will be through a private client. And you would just complete the client's details. So again, all of the areas marked in yellow, they do need to be completed as a mandatory. You don't need to complete the marital status or the national insurance number, but as best practice, if you want to, you can. I'll just put the office address in here. Okay, and then on the final tab, it will just have admin details. So this would have your advisor details in here, but like I say, we're on the training system at the moment. So the status would be current, and how is the ID verification stored? So in this case, we'll put electronic, so that's just in terms of the URU. So you would just save that, and then that has introduced the new client. So you would then go to the tab at the bottom which says manual sales process, and you would click on that just to confirm that the details are all correct, and you would just save that. And then to upload any documents, on the left hand side you see you'll have quite a few various options on the list. So you would go to second from the bottom, which is the documents tab. You would just click on that, and I'm sure you've probably all seen this page before. So on one side you have your folders, and on the right hand side you've got your files. Now, as you can see, we don't have any files in Tony Testington's folder at the moment. So what we'd like to do is obviously add a file. So just to give you an example, you would go under the file section and you would click on add. So in here, what you'd be looking to upload would be the recommendation letter, an illustration, and the copy of the service and agreement. So you may already have these saved, for example, on your desktop. So just to give you an example, you would click Browse, and then just for this purpose, we could upload the Bed and ISA sales process guidelines. You would just click Open, and then upload, and as you can see it'll just move along while it's getting uploaded. So this will then come up and say loaded yes. If there was an issue, it obviously wouldn't say yes. Then you would just close that down, and as you can see, any files that you've added will just come up under the file section there, and they'll be within the sales process Tony Testington's folder. What I'll do while we're just on this page, I'm just going to show you the shortened suitability letter for the top-up process as well. So again, you would just go to Document Store, and if I can find it, you would just scroll all the way down to Advice Quality Guidance, and it's just through Financial Planning. And this just gives you a bit of a PDF document if you wanted to print that off and keep it in a file just for what we've discussed there, so that's not what we want to look at. So as you can see, if you just go under Advice Quality Guidance Investments, and it's ISA Top-Up Template Suitability Letter, which is very similar to the Better Nicer suitability letter that I showed you earlier. It's a really straightforward document. There's only a couple of pages with it. You would just alter anything that's irrelevant to the client and complete all of the areas that are in red, or delete them if they're not necessary. And this is what you would save to your client file, and then following that you would upload it to Officeweb. So you would have that in there as well as the illustration and, like I say, the copy of the service and agreement. So once you've uploaded all of the documents that you need within the file, you would then go along to fees, and this is where you would upload the client fee. So you would click on New Fee, and here you would just add all of the details for any fees that you're going to be charging the client. So the invoice date, so we'll put today's date, and the reason for the fee, which we'll put as, we'll put recommendation wrapper product initial charge. And it's an investment, so the fee amount for this will say £200. So it's VAT exempt. And again, this will just confirm the advisor details in here. So this is an initial / one-off charge, and it's a restricted advice. The charge structure would be a fixed amount. And when it says here, is the client contact paying, we would say yes, because the client is paying directly the £200 fee. If the fee was to come out of the fund value, you would say no, and then that would come directly from the provider, from the fund. And then you would save that, and then in this section here you'll have confirmation of the fee being added. And that's basically it for the top-up process. So once you've done that, that is effectively all of the relevant documents have been added and your fees been added, and that is the end of the top-up process. So just one last thing to show you there on the ISA top-up process. If you just go back to where we clicked on the suitability report, if you look on the ISA top-up template suitability report and then assumptions, this will actually bring you to a PDF document. And this just gives you a quick guide and obviously the template report as well. So it just gives you sort of a step-by-step guide as to the process for the top-ups. And the reasons for when you would use the shortened process and when you wouldn't use it, and what you would need to include in it. So it just gives you a little bit of background information on that. And again, what documents required for you to upload. And if you have any further details, this is you can obviously contact intrinsicfs.com. The best people to contact would obviously be ourselves at the advisor support team at intrinsicfs.com. So that's all of the ISA top-up guidance, and we've gone through the Bed and ISA guidance. What we're going to do now, Andrea and myself are going to have a quick read through your questions, and then we're going to come back to you in a couple of moments and go through your questions with some responses.